Over here in Sundown Bay, we had a ton of water in here from Alberto. We had all that storm surge stuff in here, so a lot of this stuff, a lot of things were flooded out. So finally, the water has receded, and we've gotten back to somewhat normalcy to a degree. Kind of fell down to the lower ends of stuff, but once you had those couple of days there, we had some normal tides. This area up here in Sundown is always a great location to get to if you don't know where else to go to, but you can get to Sundown pretty easy. We just work the back shoreline, the little spoil island that's right there off the ICW. Get on the back side of it and work that. Get out in the middle. One of those couple of those days we had some pretty decently low tides, comparatively speaking, to what we had during the few days that were surrounding Alberto there, nearly 2.5 foot of water extra in our system. So now it's back down to that medium low level waters around, 3.3, 0.4. So that's a normal tide this time of year as we're in the summertime. But then you can work these edges out here. It's easy to do. With so much extra water, it's hard to really work more than one person on the shoreline because you're just too deep to fish. Unless you're going to fish it from the boat. But doing wade fishing 99% of the time, that's the kind of areas you're kind of looking for and want to cover and work. So we just worked these back shorelines once that tide dropped out for us. Just worked the grass line edge, worked out in the middle, worked behind the spoil island. All down here, the mouths that go back to the little back lakes that are back in there, we just covered those. The edges, shell, found different things. Trout, redfish, occasional black drum, I think a flounder or two maybe, just kind of sprinkled in there on a couple of different days. So, yeah, it was a diverse group of fish that we caught, but it was pretty good. Once that higher water kind of receded, when that big water that's in there, that much water, those fish got a lot of places that they can explore and get to, so it scatters your fish. So it makes it more difficult to locate and find during that type of thing, even though you get more areas that you can fish. But once it finally starts to recede, those fish realize that, and they're starting to move with the tide, with the dropping of it, and they'll start getting back into normal areas. So that's what kind of worked out for us this past week. Had a couple of days where we got into some areas, and it would normally help concentrate fish. Not necessarily they weren't concentrated, but just had a more abundant number of fish that are holding in a particular area. So Sundown was one of those areas for us on that particular day. Just working the grass line edge, working the back edge, working behind the spoil island, working out in the middle. Main baits of choice, since we were in those transition days, we're headed to a new moon right now. We're not too far away from a new moon at the present moment. I'd say probably another 3 days we'll be in that new moon, which is a zero illumination. So these are the 10 days that are really good for us. That the 5 days that lead up to it, the 5 days after. So you really want to work areas that you're comfortable with, that are holding fish, lots of bait. Usually that's our most productive time frame in the month, is during around that new moon. So that's coming. So we're going to be around that. But primarily what we threw this past week in those transition days was burner shad in the original size of the down south lure in multiple different flavors. Ice, white ice, bone diamond, twisted tea, big papa, pure lament green, magic grass, mud minnow in the burner shad, firecracker, supernatural. Same thing in there, color X, same colors, all the same colors we threw in the original size, we're throwing in the burner shad size, and that's what the most production came from. We had a few things that were hitting the knock and tail. Didn't throw any topwater bait whatsoever. Threw a few suspended baits, a soft dine, I think the double D. We had moderate success with that. But the main thing was the down south in the original and the burner shad size during those transition days. So just what I tell you, try to keep in that smaller profile coming off that full moon bite, which was okay, but that was when we had all the extra water that was in there. So we had a full moon, a lot of extra water, so it made things really difficult. So we stuck with a smaller profile during that time frame in those conditions. So, and we kind of just carried that transition throughout the wild card days and continued to fish that and just continue to locate fish with that same size profile bait. So it's one thing that really it helped us out with that. So it just kind of transitioned for us pretty well. So we let the fish kind of dictate. They really didn't push off of that. We were still consistent with that smaller profile. We just stuck with it. Didn't deviate off that very much, any whatsoever. Except maybe we went through the double D or maybe through a knock and tail every once in a while just to see if they wanted something a little bit bigger, and that didn't ever happen. It never transpired for us. So now we got this situation here with our normal tides. Going back to, still working shale, still working hard packed sand. Some of this area back here on the backside of Sundown, it's a little mushy in places, but again, we got the grass. You've got areas that's got scattered shale that's in it, like on some of the corners of the mouths that go back to back lakes. You can fish those areas pretty well, and that's pretty. That's kind of where we were locating our fish, was right up against that grass line edge, and that's where fish were still kind of holding for us. So. The majors and minors were the key thing for us, and it's always for throwing artificials. That's the number one key thing, is set your day up with that major or that minor, whatever time frame you're going to fish, and that's primarily when our production has been the best for us. Down here at Allen's, Allen's Bight, from the point all out here on the St. Joe shoreline, all this area, man, lots of grass, great hard packed sand. You got edges out there. You've got potholes that are out there. You got a tremendous amount of bait that's working up and down these. So we're getting out there on these shorelines. We just get ourselves situated where we see a bunch of, potholes that are down from us, so we can really work these things. So primarily what's going on trout bite wise, if that's what your primary target is, we're trying to get those suckers early, 6:15ish, start working those. Right now, by 9 to 10 o'clock, that trout bite really dies off unless you get an extended bite with a major or minor during that time frame. So we got minors working for us, major overs that are working for us right now. We got minors that come later in the afternoon. But man, that trout bite gets tough after about that time frame. So we're really, really working our tails to try to get that trout bite early like that, and then after that we start chasing redfish, and because redfish are going to be pretty hardy and they hang out, and you'll find those suckers in hot water. It doesn't matter, they don't care too much. But that's we're really kind of focusing on. So if you know areas that are similar to your hard packed sand with your grass and that type of thing, then you can find and locate fish, and there's fish are going to be around that. So we've really located some solid trout that are up and down this shoreline here, all the way up to the Mott. And of course you get up in here in the Mott area, you got some shale that's mixed in there, and then of course you got long reef this there right off the Mott that comes out. And we've been working some of long reef on the shallower end, what's left of it, like that Dead's Man that's out there close to the ICW. So we've worked the little pads that are out there that are underwater, that are no longer showing anymore. So we worked those areas as well. And again, with the tide that has dropped back down, we've got down to normal size as far as the level of it. These really came back into play for us. Couldn't do that last week after Alberto came through, just too much water to weight it. But now that the water has, again, receded back, so it gives us an area to focus on and to be at, so we can really find and locate those fish. The water's really warm. It's starting out at 83 to 85 degrees in the morning, depending on where you're at, and it's warming up even that as the day progresses. So stuff to keep in mind. You want to fish shallow early and fish deep late in the summer months. Those fish, as that sun creeps up, they're going to get off in deeper water. Even some of these days, we'll get out there and we'll be working shorelines early. We'll get on the shell, work it that's a little bit deeper. And then if we're still trying to locate, and then we even go hit some of the mid-bay wells that are out there, into that 10 to 12 foot of water. Put on just a little bit heavier jig head, maybe a 1/4 ounce jig head. Scan them. See if you've got bait fish that are hanging down on the bottom of the legs of those, and just throw artificials down there and just let them fall and just work them off the bottom down there. We've had decent success with that as well. Not a tremendous amount, but we've pulled a few off, especially after 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning. So just something else you can put in your arsenal. Just another idea for you if if your trout bite hasn't been very good, or it ended up not being as good. So that's just another area that you can go hit and work. Like I say, we've been working all those areas: hard packed sand, shale, deeper water as the morning progresses. Those are the areas and how you kind of want to proceed with it. Again, main baits we've been throwing is throwing the down south in the original size and the burner shad. A few of the knock and tail If we get out there in really, really deep water, we're just throwing plastics out there. You can throw the Little John out there. You can throw a few other baits that are on the markets that if there's something that you like, that we've just kind of try to roll with it. And again, the main colors that we're throwing, we're just trying to match the water clarity that's out there. But it's been pretty dirty after Alberto came through there, so it's something to take in effect well. So we threw darker colors for that, and so it did okay. But like I say, our main focus was up against the shoreline. We had cleaner water up there in the grass areas like that, so it worked out for us finding and locating trout. A few redfish sprinkled up against the shorelines in some areas, but again, trout bite, that was the main thing that we were trying to work and focus on and try to locate fish during that time frame. In here in Swan, we're fishing the back shoreline of Swan, all this back here. A little squishier than we probably would like for it to be, but that's the way that the bottom is back in there. But we worked that looking primarily for redfish in there. Then we come out here on the front, and that's where your hard packed sand and the grass and those areas out here in the front side of Copano, out there in front of the oyster farm area. That's shorelines, these guts, fishing that nice hard packed sand in there. You got little grass island up here that's around this, and then you got the big flat, and you got the drop off. So it kind of works out for you. So if you work all that area back up in here, work that outside, providing there's fish there that's going to hold you there. If there's, of course, if there's not fish that are holding in there, there's not much going on, then you're obviously going to move along. But if it works out that you're catching a few fish along this way to kind of keep you in there until you can get to that mid-morning, late-morning bite type of frame, if your major or minor sets up for you that way, then you can get out here on this edge that's right here off that Swan Lake flat that drops off for you. You got deeper water. Those fish, those fish location, they want to get off in that kind of stuff later in the morning, late in the or early afternoon to late afternoon. That water's typically cooler for them, and that's what they want to be. They want to be comfortable. They don't want to be hot, specifically trout. Like I say, redfish, they're not too worried about it. They'll get wherever they need to get what they want, primarily just get something to eat. So we're working these types of areas like that. So we work that outer edge out there. And like I say, we're working down south in the original, in the burner shad size. Multiple different flavors, same flavors I mentioned earlier, same dynamics here with that. But then we'd get to that mid-morning, that 10 o'clock-ish, and that bite would die off as far as in the shallower water, and then we get up here and get on these edges. So this, fishing that deeper water, this is where you might want to put on just a little bit heavier jig head, a 3/16 or an 1/8 ounce. I still would throw the 16th just allow it to just more time to drop, knowing that the depth is going to be deeper for me. So instead of a 2 to 3 count, we'd go to a 7 to 10 count and allow that bait to really get down there and just kind of work it slow up to the side, just bouncing it along and see what kind of action that we would get for it. We get a few bites along the way and let it kind of dictate to us what's going on. If there's a flavor that they're really wanting, or if there's a size or profile, which again, coming off of that full moon and going into that transition moon, we just stuck with the original size burner, or the original size down south, and the burner shad size were the flavors that we really stuck, or the size that we stuck with. And then of course the flavors, again, mud minnow, firecracker, supernatural, watermelon red, twisted tea, big papa, all those different flavors, white ice, bone diamond, just the normal flavors, nothing special. There's a couple of different other ones with just a little bit darker, maybe Texas roach that we put in there, and then there's another one, BR, that looked like basically what it was root beer flavor with a lot of gold flake in it, and it did really well. For gold, Copperfield was another one that we threw in there. It's a little darker side, but had some gold flake in it as well, and that seemed to do pretty well. So something to that nature that you want to have in your box that you can ever throw. Soft dine, smaller profile, did pretty good. It was all right. Double D and just a little bit shallower water earlier in the day, but not so much later in the day, just because it's limited because it's an ascending bait, not a descending bait. So it's always stuff that you want to kind of take in consideration and work. So we just work down these shoreline edges, working the deeper water later in the mornings, working the shallow water earlier in the mornings. Plenty of bait in the area. You don't ever have to worry about that. Ton of bait around there. So one other thing, while we're in this topic here, as far as our water and our water levels and that stuff, we got us another little section going on out in the Caribbean that's coming this way. Probably nothing's going to come about it until really know more about it after the 4th of July, which while we're on that, I hope everybody has a great 4th of July coming up. Be safe, have fun while you're out there, but just something to keep your eye on down the road. As if you have future plans to be in the area or anywhere up and down the coast, because it will affect things at some point in time in the near future.